Imagine a country that is 26 times smaller than the US and has only 3 times as many people living in it. There's not much land, its price is sky high, so everything grows up. Multi-level parking lots for cars and even bicycles, capsule hotels, vending machines where you can buy everything from eggs, meat, and potatoes to t-shirts and underwear. If you look closely at the locals, you realize that they are from another planet. But more about that later. So, Japan. If you're watching this video, you probably don't have a private business jet that would take you to that country for a weekend, so get comfy. We're going to tell you about it. But before we begin, make sure you've subscribed to the channel and hit the bell icon to stay updated with future content. Cities. Most of the country's population is clustered in cities, so be prepared for constant queues. A queue to board the train, queue for the escalator, a queue for a restaurant. Yes, just to eat at some street eatery, you can stand and wait for 2 hours. Wherever there are usually queues, there will be special markings on the floor or pavement for the queues, so that people do not disturb each other, and especially those who are not in the queue. Surprisingly, there is also such a problem as extinct villages here, except here this problem has its local twist again. As a result of the rapid aging of the nation and the overcrowding of megacities, the number of abandoned houses in the countryside is growing. The authorities of small communities go to radical measures. Some houses are put up for auction for a nominal fee, others are given away for free, and some are even ready to pay extra if you make repairs there. Of course, there are restrictions. Only young families with children are provided with free housing. The parents must not be older than 43 years old, and the children must not be older than the age of elementary school students. Families are required to move to the locality and must reside there, not just come for vacations or holidays. So, those who wish to have a free summer cottage in Japan should abandon their dreams. Mindset. There are legends about Japanese people being more attentive to details, and for good reason. Sometimes it seems that they can push any matter to the absurd limit. The Japanese have 2 kinds of slippers at home. One they wear all over the house, the other only when they go to the toilet. Besides being the longest living, it is also one of the hardest working nations in the world. The average Japanese sleeps only 6.5 hours a night. So, most fall asleep during breaks at work, in parks, in cafes, in bookstores, in shopping malls, and in other public places. This kind of sleep is so common and so normal that the Japanese have a word for it, enemuri, which means to be present during sleep. In other countries, sleeping at work may cost an employee the job, but not in Japan. Here it is considered a sign of diligence since people are so devoted to their work that they labor to the point of exhaustion. The Japanese are great masters of inventing fun activities where they could realize their Japanese zeal, patience, and concentration. For example, doridango, balls of earth polished to a shine. In theory, it's quite simple. We mix earth and water to a plastic mud, form a smooth ball, then dry and rub the surfaces to a mirror-like shine, the so-called hikaru, shining state. In fact, it is a constant change of tedious, monotonous actions over several hours. You need to make sure that the ball does not get cracked. One Japanese jeweler probably didn't want to get his hands dirty with dirt, so he came up with another amusement. He took a 52-foot roll of kitchen foil and began to crumble it, then work it with a hammer and then polish it. A couple of dozen Japanese man-hours and you got such a ball. Naturally, the rest of the Japanese were thrilled, and now the whole country is obsessed with polishing foil balls. But you can't say that the Japanese are tedious, they're just different. It's obvious not only in anime, but in Japanese TV shows. You can see all sorts of things there. These are some cruel pranks. Or such shows. Transport. Of course, Japanese public transport is punctual and highly developed. Cabs here are horribly expensive. The paycheck for a trip can run into hundreds of dollars, but you can hardly rent a car. An American driver's license in Japan turns into a pumpkin. Owning a personal car also has its limitations. In Japan, you can't just save up money and buy a car. First, you must prove that you'll be able to use it without causing inconvenience to others. One of the main requirements is to have a private parking space within a radius of no more than 1.24 miles from your home. A parking space is often rented. The size of the parking spaces is also important. When you apply to the police, you must provide a drawing of your parking space. The police may not allow you to buy a new SUV if they think your parking space is too small for it. Also, Japan is the most bicycle-friendly country in Asia, and Tokyo is one of the 10 most bicycle-friendly cities in the world. At the same time, there's virtually no bicycle infrastructure in the country. Entire streets, often combined with sidewalks, are closed to cyclists. There are virtually no normal dedicated bike lanes, and especially no bicycle lanes in Japanese cities, only on major streets. If you think that you only need to comply with the rules of paid bicycle parking, you're wrong. Bicyclists have their own rules for riding and a system of fines for violating these rules. All bicycles must be registered. A special sticker with a number is put on the bike, and the owner is given a card of identification, which must always be carried with them. The police often check the documents, and if the card is missing, they may suspect the bicycle has been stolen. Tateyama. Most of our country was once again without snow on New Year's Eve, but in the northern mountains of Japan every year, some roads look like this. Many people still do not believe that this is not a Photoshop. Every year in Japan, great walls of snow grow along the roads of one of the prefectures, which can be up to 65 feet high. In winter, the highways are covered with so much snow that when they are excavated in April and May, they turn out such deep gorges. To make sure the excavation is accurate, special embedded multimeter towers with radio transmitters are installed along the side of the roadway. Ecology. The Japanese are the world's best at sorting and recycling garbage. However, this is the only way they can do it. 126 million people will quickly pollute the small country if nothing is done about garbage, so the fines for various garbage violations are high. The fines for illegal garbage disposal are up to $90,000. Photos of violators are posted all over the neighborhood, so neighbors know they're bad heroes. Every city has its own rules for garbage collection, and there are instructions on garbage collection for newcomers. These are called gomi-guides. The first part of the word gomi translates as garbage. Sometimes it's a 50-page read. The Japanese throw out trash according to a trash calendar, a certain type of trash on a certain day. It is very difficult to find trash cans on the streets, but it is not dirty. The Japanese have long been accustomed to throwing away unnecessary things where it is allowed. For example, all kinds of trash cans are available in stores. During the 2018 FIFA World Cup, Japanese fans took their time after the match to walk through the rows of the stadium and clean up after themselves. The national team defender commented, "In Japan, they say you should leave any place cleaner than it was before you." The players clean up after themselves in the locker room, too. In a country where there is simply nowhere to take garbage, nowhere to bury it, and nowhere to throw it away from prying eyes, the only thing left is to develop advanced technologies for recycling. What cannot be recycled is incinerated. About 2/3 of all garbage in Japan is incinerated at special stations with the lowest possible amount of harmful emissions into the atmosphere. Then the energy obtained is used. This reverence for garbage does not prevent the super technological nation from flooding the world's oceans with radioactive waste. Every day, 80 to 105 gallons of highly radioactive water is still poured into the ocean from the groundwater below Fukushima. But that is not the most interesting part. After the accident, the 12-mile zone around the station was evacuated, but in May 2011, it was discovered that quite high radiation levels were also observed far beyond this zone, including areas 25 miles away from the station. There was discussion of evicting everyone within 25 miles of the station, but that was deemed too costly a procedure. Instead, the Japanese government is changing health regulations, raising the maximum allowable radiation dose for civilians by 20 times. Thus, the radioactive zone turned out to be quite clean. For understanding, the U.S. Embassy recommended its citizens living in Japan not to settle closer than 50 miles to the Fukushima 1 nuclear power plant. The Japanese were only moved out of the 12-mile zone. And the Japanese government also decreed if people were exposed to less than 100 X-rays, then if they got sick, it was not because of Fukushima. And don't let them invent the things. By the way, 100 X-rays is the lower threshold of acute radiation sickness, i.e., it's not a small dose. In Chernobyl, liquidators were supposed to be written off after 25 X-rays. As you can imagine, this is a rather convenient way of estimating the number of victims of the accident. Finance. There is no standard minimum wage in Japan. Everyone has a starting salary, the same for everyone, and it grows according to years of service in the company. The starting wage for university graduates is 200,000 yen, $1,500 per month. The minimum hourly wage is 1,072 yen, $7.85. For renting an apartment, a Japanese pays 100,000 to 350,000 yen, $750 to $2,600. Rental prices depend on the distance from the center, proximity to train stations, and the newness of the building. The most popular type of housing is the usagi-goya, a small apartment of up to 161 to 215 square feet in the center and near the train stations for $620. A standard 430 square foot multi-bedroom apartment costs 200 to 350,000 yen, $1,450 to $2,600. Transportation costs are also high, about $120, and a one-time subway ride costs about $1.25. You even have to pay to use your bike. Parking for bicycles costs about 75 cents a day on average. One person spends about 40 to 55,000 yen, $300 to $400 a month on groceries. In Japan, fruits and vegetables are very expensive. Everything is sold by the piece, not by the kilogram, as in Western countries. An apple, orange, or grapefruit costs 100 to 200 yen, 73 cents to $1.40. There are some things in Japan that are very expensive. Among them, going to the cinema starts at $10 per ticket. Pizza is $8 for a small pizza and almost $25 for a large one. A trip on the Shinkansen is more than $160 for a Tokyo-Osaka ticket. And there's also mobile communication. A Japanese mobile operator costs $25 to $35 per month for active use of the service. The number of billionaires in Japan, the home of such giants as Nissan, Toyota, Honda, Panasonic, Toshiba, Canon, is 18 times less than in the US, while 45 positions in the top 500 companies in the world are occupied by the Japanese. The number of millionaires in Japan is 3.2% of the adult population, and in the US, it's 8.8%. And the last figure, Japan has 15.7% of people living in poverty, while in the US, it's 14.4%. Pension. The retirement age is 65. You can retire earlier, but the payments will be less. Otherwise, you can retire later and the payments will be higher. To simplify, in Japan, the pension consists of three parts: a basic pension of about $480, an occupational allowance of 35 to 40% of salary, and a lump sum payment, the average salary multiplied by the number of years worked in the company. With a salary of 500,000 yen, $3,700, and 40 years of service, this payout is around $140,000. However, there are elderly people in Japan who can barely make ends meet, and some retirees go on crime sprees to end up in prison, where you'll be given food and a roof over your head. That's Japan. We're curious to hear your opinion about this video in the comments. At this point, we get to the end of our video. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon and give this video a big thumbs up. This will only take a split second, but surely pump the YouTube algorithm to bring our videos to the top. See you in the next video.